It doesn't often happen that you find a horror movie that actually lands where it's legitimately scary, has a good story, compelling characters, and good acting that drives the whole thing to the finish line. Like this year, there was a stupid movie with the pool that killed people that I forgot if it was like an Indian burial ground or like what the reason was behind the pool killing people. Night Swim. And then you have movies that are more like jump scary, like Smile last year, which is just jump scare, just the whole time. I feel like that's popularized by the Conjuring movies where it's just, hey, a quick flash of something, loud noise, gets your attention, boom. You know, that bled into The Nun because people think nuns are scary. And this movie further reaffirmed that nuns are scary, but they don't need to be scary because of loud noises. They're scary because they're inherently freaky looking, and you just kind of look at them long enough and it's just unsettling. The first Omen was a movie that everyone was kind of talking about earlier this year that kind of took the horror movie genre by storm. Everyone was like, this is a sleeper, surprisingly good, actually delivers on a lot of practical effects, not a lot of abusive CGI, not a lot of abusive over-the-top blood or over-the-top gratuitous violence. It really sticks with you and it makes you think, and it's more cerebral than anything else. And I was excited to see it for a long time. It really lived up to those expectations. The movie's a prequel to the original Omen, and it's talking about the coming of Damien, or the Antichrist, which that series is already established. 3 movies already in the past that came out in the 70s. And the 2006 remake that just, I still think is pretty good. I don't think it's a good like movie to throw on like Halloween time, whatever. It's fun and it checks off enough of the boxes, but you know, it clearly wasn't enough to start a franchise again. This movie, I think, could spur that. I'm so interested to see where they're gonna go in the direction here. Now you introduce some other characters and other pieces to this game that weren't talked about before, which we will get to in a second, or we'll get to later on in the video. But it gripped me. It gripped me right from the beginning. It had that same kind of tone as the 2006 Omen in a lot of ways, and it was more of a slow burn. It was more something where the atmosphere itself, the setting, the costume design, everything that was going on just visually was unsettling and creepy. So you were constantly in a state of tension. You were constantly in a state of just, oh, I'm unnerved by this and I don't like what's going on. Movie starts, you have the father from Vivitch, a great movie, could not recommend Vivitch enough. And he's a priest and he's like, what's going on with this Antichrist coming about, blah, blah, blah. Another priest is like, please stop asking me questions about it. I just want to get the hell out of Dodge. He goes outside, glass falls, kills the old priest. Classic setup, very Omen-esque. And it feels like it's paying homage to that 2006 version a lot. We move to the setting of Rome where we have our protagonist, Margaret, played by Nell Tigerfree. That's the craziest fucking name ever. I don't know if she's like a flower child kind of person or that was like a conscious effort to like draw attention to African reservations or whatnot, but whatever it was, it's definitely a name that stands out. She was also the lead in that show with M. Night Shyamalan called The Servant that I try to get into, but M. Night Shyamalan for me, just ever since The Sixth Sense and Sign, just really can't deliver on anything. I mean, Lady in the Water's hot doo-doo. The Village is hot doo-doo. My mom might be upset about that one, but he just never really can kind of capture that gold that he did initially, but I digress from that. So she's a person that's trying to become a nun. She's coming over to Italy to do it, and she's being moved around a lot. There's like either a high bishop or someone that's high in the church that's saying, hey, this is a place for you to go make your vows or do whatever the hell. Goes over to Italy. She's introduced to this congregation of young women and nuns where they're basically caring for little girls. They are birthing children because of course they would be. And there's like a disturbed like little girl that's like, you know, licking people in the face and drawing on the floor because that's what kids do. Right away, she starts to have like a bit of a connection or a bonding or a kinship with the weird girl because she's like, hey, not only is it weird that you're drawing all over the floor and whatnot, when I was a kid, I used to have the craziest hallucinations that were borderline so crazy I thought they were real and people thought I should be diagnosed with some kind of illness. But look at me now. I'm just fine. Margaret plays this role so well because her alone, just the way she depicts her facial expressions and the way she conveys herself, her body language is so off-putting and she's just kind of creeping you out the whole time. You know, she's a beautiful actress, the whole not, it's not that. She's putting you in a state of discomfort. You're constantly just looking at her and you're feeling agitated or just like a little unnerved. She has a friend also going through this practice to become a nun and they meet up and she's like, oh, I'm hot, you're hot, let's go hit the town town before I gotta do all this nun stuff. So they hit the town. She's never really gone out and partied before. And they meet up with some boys, which, you know, boys are the devil. Am I right, guys? And they go out and they're dancing about. She gets a little frisky on the dance floor and passes out. She awakens the next day, and there's alluding to some foul play was going on the night before. This component of the movie, I thought it was kind of on the nose. They're trying to allude to this little girl who's disturbed, this Katina, the one that they keep putting in a punish room. She's the problem, and everyone's got to keep an eye on her, but she's more of the red herring in the situation. Wasn't surprising. You can kind of peg it in the first 30 minutes of the movie where it's going, but you know, it didn't cheapen it or lessen the experience for me. It just, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't like, oh my goodness. I was kind of, oh, here we are. They're going through their day to day in the convent, and the dad from Vivitch comes by and he's like, listen, bad stuff is gonna start happening around that Katina girl. You gotta come see me later. She's like, you're a crazy guy. I don't feel safe, and I need an adult. Later on that day, what would you know? Something crazy happens. This crazy nun with some weird eyebrows that I could have sworn she was gonna be blonde, but she just had blonde eyebrows and brown hair. I don't know how common that is, but I was kind of alarmed to see it. I was like, oh, she's got blonde eyebrows and brown hair. She has a drawing of a lady with a blue baby inside and goes, oh, it's a boy. Margaret says, what the hell are you going on about? And then the nun lady goes, hell's where you're going. She said, what? They give each other a little smooch, a little kiss. And then she goes to the top, lights her, the blonde eyebrow lady goes to the top of the building, lights herself on fire and jumps off. Margaret's a little thrown off by this. So Margaret goes to see the Vivitch guy with the really cool voice. She goes to him, she goes, all right, you told me to come here. You said something bad was going to happen. Something bad did happen. And this is where the meat and potatoes comes of it all. It's an interesting concept because the 70s was that time period where people started to break away from religion. You had a lot of distrust in the establishment, a lot of distrust in government. So people were pulling away from the church in droves. Because people no longer feared the unknown, feared sin and whatnot, the church was losing power, truth was losing money. In order, which is the most insane, crazy plan, and I'll talk more about my thoughts on this later, but the church was like a few powerful sects or members of the church. They said, all right, because people are going away because they don't fear anymore, we're gonna give them something to talk about. And they said they're gonna bring across the Antichrist themselves and just control them. They're gonna bring him in, but they're gonna put him in a little pen and they're gonna say, hey man, you could do some bad things, or you get too out of line, and we're gonna reel you back in. She doesn't question this plan whatsoever. She's like, you're a nut job. Leaves. And I also kind of think you're a nut job too, because that plan, again, we'll get to it later, just absolutely insane to me. There's children of the devil that are supposed to bring about the Antichrist, but it's always been unsuccessful. Pretty much all of them have died. He needs to get files from in that coven to reveal to whoever, the Pope or some shit, that this is going on. And there's one person that has survived, and that's Katina. So Katina has the mark of the devil on her somewhere. She's got to find it. It's going to prove his point, and it's going to reinforce where he's coming from. So she's like, nah. It finally tips her over the edge as she goes back to nun world where all these creepy ass nuns are. The lady's giving birth because, again, they have free healthcare here, I guess. They got Obamacare going on. And the lady's on the bench screaming her ass off. Margaret is just watching the lady losing it. They give her some laughing gas. She becomes like all like demonic and like, you know, creepy and weird. And you see the belly going and the baby's coming out. You know, the birth of life, because it's beautiful, because it's natural. But instead of a natural baby, and I didn't look at this part, I actually was turning completely to the left because I can't do that. I'm weak. You see a hand come out as opposed to a baby head. She passes out. Everyone's like, hey, you know, the gift of life is a lot. Most people can't handle it. We're not surprised you passed out. Just going on with your day, okay? They go to like on a little field trip, I guess, if you want to call it a field trip. Margaret's talking to Katina, and it's like, hey man, you're good. I believe you. I'm going to protect you. I know people are doing bad stuff to you. She keeps having visions about the nun that killed herself and was like, this is all for you. After this vision happens, they go outside and there's a riot. There's riots going on. Again, people that are anti-establishment, bombing cars, flipping stuff. And she gets grabbed by a bunch of people that are rioting and whatnot. And then a big, I don't know what word to use to avoid, you know, flagging something with YouTube, but a big appendage. I didn't know if this was I wanted to err on the side of tongue, that this was a tongue. But as I keep thinking about it, it doesn't, I don't know if it was. Maybe it could have been. I I'm hoping it could have been, just for the sake of staying classy. But something kind of swipes our hero across the face and jars her. This movie has a ton of sexual undertone from the jump, like from when it initially starts with the relationships between the nuns, between the nun friend, the roommates, even Katina and Margaret. I think there's something there just talking about the nefariousness about improper sexual relationships. I'm no doctor. But it seems like that definitely played a heavy hand in a lot of this. Anyway, that happens. I'm scarred for the rest of my life. So our girl's kind of messed up right now. She just got slapped with schlong. She's a little thrown off. The other nuns are like, stay the hell away from Katina, and nobody gets hurt. So she's like, not gonna do that. I'm gonna go talk to her whenever I want to. Then they're like, no. She leaves for the night. She's going home, and she sees one of the boys, or the boy, from the night that she went to the club. And then all this kind of craziness started. She's like, what's going on? The boy. He's like, stay away from me. I didn't know. Look for the mark. And he like throws up the AI, like the NBA. He says, "Die!" He gets hit by a car. She tries to slow dance with him, rips his body in half. She's a murderer now. Now that she's held a dead man by half of his body, she goes back to the father. She goes, I'm in. This is Mission Impossible. This is Mission Impossible with nuns. She's like, I'm gonna get the files that you're looking for. So she gets all the information about Katina and like when she was born and whatnot. See, she was born on 666, right? See, she has that mark, and she sees it in her gum line. You know the part of your mouth that if you have a brain freeze, so you put your tongue in it and it'll stop the brain freeze? That's where it is at Katina. So it doesn't necessarily mean that she is inherently evil herself. She is a vessel of the devil that can bring about the Antichrist. So she's a tool, mostly, more than anything. They get the information. Margaret's best friend becomes a nun, and she's being all like nunnish and like getting down on the ground and like rubbing her face on the ground and touching hands with everybody and, you know, singing Kumbaya like nuns do. They find out that they find out that every child except for Katina has died, but there's one missing picture where they thought that the picture they've had the entire movie was Katina, and you see the symbol on the forehead. It wasn't Katina. There's another file of another survivor. Margaret was a vessel the whole time. And she's like, how could this have been? It's because she never had a buzz cut. It was always up there and it was always covered. They just like, how do we not realize this? And like, I don't know. Katina's too young and you're viable and fruitful and whatnot, so they use you. And she's like, oh my God, when I was at that club and I thought that I got roofied or something, I did. But it wasn't the man that she was dealing with. Actually, it was her father, and her father is the devil. It becomes like a "that's my boy," like incest, that's fucked up situation, and it is pretty bad. It already makes a bad situation even worse because then you got that part of it. So that's gross. The devil trying to reproduce with regular hosts or whatever was never producing an heir, I guess you could say, producing the thing that they needed. So he needed to do it with his own child. Margaret says, I volunteer tribute. She did not say that. She's like, I gotta get this bad boy out of me. Bad boy in more ways than one. Not bad boy with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith, but he's probably gonna be a bad boy. They're driving to go to get the AB, and they get hit by a car. This scene where she's basically being overcome by the birth of this abomination is so sick. It was so well done. When I'm saying that Nell Tiger Free just killed this role. Absolutely crushed it. Like, amazing performance. She's basically being overcome and she's gyrating and she's spazzing out and eliciting like sounds of just almost like drowning and gargling and like almost like demonic tones. And it could have easily been so cheesy. Like, you could easily see that, and that can completely ruin a scene, let alone ruin a whole movie, and just take all of the unnerving scare out of there. She was so compelling and so good that I literally watched it again after I watched the movie, and I was like, that was sick. That was super dope. It's a one-shot for the most part until it's no longer a one-shot. She's convulsing, her water breaks, and she's gonna have the baby. Now she's tied up in a basement. All the nuns are there, and the initial priest, bishop, father guy's like, hey, this is great. Don't be, no, shush. This is good. Hey, This is fine. You're going to bring out the Antichrist. We're going to leash this little guy, let him run around, let him like take a penny out of the take a penny jar and swipe some cookies at your local convenient deli. Then, people are going to start believing in God again. This is what he wants. I will talk about this again because I have to talk about it later. She's like, no, this sucks. And then they give her a C-section, a little pouch comes out, and you got devil baby thing. But it's next to another baby. So you get the boy, which they wanted the whole time, and then you get a girl, which was never mentioned in the original Omen trilogy, even the new one. So this is a whole new component. This is kind of a new spin on it. The cult's not a cult. They think they're following the word of God because they think that this is going to bring power back to the church. They're all pumped up. They're touching the boy's head. The girls are sitting over there still crying. Margaret is just beside herself. She's like, she's in pain. She's freaking out. She's scared. She knows exactly what's going on. One last ditch effort. She's going to try to take it upon herself to kill the baby. She takes the scalpel, gets the father, has the baby in her hand, gets out wrestled by like a 95-year-old geriatric nun, somehow loses she got stabbed. That's what it was. Well, she got out wrestled. I mean, you have to have risk control in these kind of situations. But she then got stabbed by her best friend, her bestie. You can never prepare for that when your best friend stabs you in the back. She's on the ground. She's dying. Katina is just, not being supervised and comes in to save her and save the girl baby. She runs in, she's stabbed but not dead, swipes her up, swipes the girl baby, pulls her out, and then you see what looks to be a jackal on fire. And I don't know if that was a physical jackal. I'm a little curious to see what you guys thought, or I don't know if it was a representation of, was it a physical jackal? Was it an actual jackal? Was it an incarnation of the devil? And that was just his physical body being burned? I don't know. But that kind of was interesting to me. It ends, and they set up they set up everything that goes into the original Omen. So Damien being put into a family, them swapping the baby. The only difference now in this one is that Margaret is with Katina now, and the devil girl offspring, but being raised by them, and they're kind of just living remotely. And so Katina and Margaret are basically sisters, daughters of the devil. Margaret's daughter is her sister and her daughter, and then the aunt and the sister. It's a weird dynamic. This is why you don't do that. This is where they have laws for these things. So Vivitch guy shows up, somehow finds him. He's like, they're gonna come for you. They know you lived, and your boy's name is Damien. Roll credits. Couple things. The plan that they're like, all right, people are losing faith in the church because they have nothing to fear, and fear keeps people in check, which does make sense. Like, you can control the masses by scaring them in order to do something. But the fact that they're so dumb, because I think this plan is idiotic. I appreciate the fact that it was refreshed and it wasn't derivative of something else, but the thought that they were like, all right, like, we're gonna get the devil involved and be like, hey man, could we use your seed? You make a kid, and then we'll use your kid to make people love God. Not a bad idea, right? He's like, yeah, of course, yeah. Fine. I don't know how they thought that this is like, how they don't realize they're being duped. Like, it's the stupidest thing in the world. Why they think they can control this kid, thing, monster, creature. Why would the devil put himself in a situation where he's going to depower himself or risk God being more in favor again? This is more beneficial to him than anything. If anything, you're just stacking the deck in his favor, and then he just has a physical embodiment on Earth that he can use as a tool. It's so stupid. It's not well thought out. But the genuity is respectable, because this could have easily gone the route of like a Rosemary's Baby, and even there's some things that definitely it's got to be paying homage to it, where Rosemary gives birth to the Antichrist, whatever, but the cult was in on it and they were doing it in the name of evil. The church truly believes that they can swing people back towards faith and towards God if they give them something to unite against and to create an enemy, so to speak, but that they have dominion over. Stupid, but at least they're coming from an earnest point. They think they're doing the right thing. Stupid. I want to reiterate how stupid it is. It could have been the other route. It wouldn't have detracted too much from the movie overall. I think it was like, all right, they're acting in good faith. So it changes it a little bit. The movie's really strong. I think the movie's really strong. The acting performances overall are really good. It's the setting of that 1970s Italy is new. It's different. A lot of times it's a creepy haunted house or it's a rundown church and things that you see all the time. This obviously has elements of that, but the setting seems depressing. It automatically kind of takes the hope out of you right from the beginning. And again, that's due to a very strong performance by Tiger Free. What a name. I would love to see her in more things. I want to see where they're going to go with the series now, because The Omen has its own established lore. It has like its own, ending and progression. But throwing this curveball in with the sister, I think that's pretty cool, because I want to see what they're going to do with that. Is it going to be a thing where she stays good? Because it seems like Katina and Margaret are no longer over the control of the devil. Like he was using them as a vessel to carry Damien. They still worship God. They still believe in the church, and they're raising this child to do the same from what it seems like so far. It can go a completely different direction. I don't know that. But I think it would be interesting to see this child, this girl that's bestowed like this magnificent, horrible, terrible power, and use it for good and use it to counteract Damien. I think that's the way they can kind of go with it. It kind of seems like it's going, it's a horror thriller, but it seems like it could be going more of the thriller route. But I'm really invested. I really want to see what they're going to do next. Incredibly interesting, not reinventing the wheel. The body horror, the slow burn elements to it, and just the overall disturbing imagery and the disturbing thoughts and the things you create in your own mind really build and do a lot of the heavy lifting for the movie for you. Even when it ended, I was immediately excited to see what this next installment's going to look like. Would love to know what you guys think about where it can go. And if you know of any other good horror movies you think stands out like this and kind of in this frame of mind, definitely let me know. If you want to see more stuff like this, you should subscribe, you should comment so we could chat and I can get to know you and we can continue building a friendship. Good night.